Hi, everyone. Hi, Dr. Miraway. How are you doing?
Hey, Dr. Ojo Karen's living the dream. How are you?
I'm good. Thank
It's
you for joining
Tuesday.
us today.
Oh, wait.
We're here. Climax After Dark. I have here today with me Dr. Miraway, my bestie, my sister from another mother,
Yes,
my
yes.
sister in Christ, but also sister in obstetrics. And we're
hmm
talking about pregnancy and intimacy, two things that go together, but oftentimes don't go together.
Two
Would you
things
agree?
that
Would you agree with
go
that?
together. Pregnancy and intimacy. I don't know about that. I don't know that they go together. They go together like mustard on a hot dog. I mean, you could do without it and it'd still be fine.
Yeah.
You know, it just depends on your flavor of what you like. But I'm not knocking it for those that have the energy, capacity, and flexibility to do it. But I'm here to also grow and learn.
Okay. Well, you have history in the subject as a professional and
hmm
also as a consumer, may we say.
Consumer of
So,
intimacy and
so
pregnancy.
your thoughts before we came on, you said something when I
I,
said what our topic was. What did you say? You wanna elaborate?
I feel like I said several things. I think uh, you said that you had a question, and I
Mhm.
said I had a question, and I started to say, why would anyone want to be intimate during pregnancy? But I caught myself because I can't let my own personal feelings about how crazy my pregnancy was cloud how amazing and beautiful and wonderful it is for other people. Um, I'm just thinking about how mad I would be depending on the trimester.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, first trimester, I'm vomiting. I don't think you want
Yeah.
any parts of this during that time. Um, you're probably gonna get me second trimester, but I think I was so anxious for my
hmm
pregnancy that I just didn't want to risk it. That's probably where my not apprehension, but kind of like, why are we talking about this?
So that's you in pregnancy. By the way, quick plug, I'm drinking mom's water. I'm up in my game. I'm usually, you know me, I'm on my adaptogen some people say adaptogen, and then there's another way to say it. But anyway, I'm on my adaptogen kick. I
Adapt
mean,
to gin.
my adaptogens,
Oh,
ashwagandha, maca root,
hmm
L-theanine.
I mean,
Um,
I have something similar. I just adapt to gin just a little bit.
with some nice soda
That's
water.
my version. Yes, I do adaptogens too.
Yeah, I've
Just in
been
a
on it,
different
but
way.
today was the first day of school, and I think it
Mm.
is very interesting that we're talking about intimacy and pregnancy now because the results of that intimacy before pregnancy, I love them. I love them, but I
Yeah,
need mom's water, so
yes,
that's what
mom's
I'm
water
drinking
is
right
I will be getting mine too as well. I have to get on the road a little bit later, so I'm being a responsible mom and not um anyway.
now. So
But
as a seasoned mom, that was your
yes,
feeling during pregnancy.
yes.
What was your feeling? And let me ask you quickly: was that all three pregnancies?
I would say that was my girls. You know,
Okay,
girls, you hear all the madness behind me, right?
right. Yes.
Okay. This is again why.
Result.
What are you doing that?
Make
It's ruining the whole anyway. So, um, girls don't really like their moms in utero. They
God, could
make you ugly for your husband. They make you angry, and they make you swole. So at no time did I feel up to any task other than sleeping.
be.
which could still have done the trick. I mean, just depends on your what you fashion. But yeah, my girls. My son was an easier one for me. Um, yeah, he was, and even now to this day, he's easy. He's just like, so I felt more, with it. I was going to parties. I was still wearing my pre-pregnancy clothes, feeling cute. But still, there's a big bump that is in the way, for what you're trying to do. It almost seems sinful.
So pre-pregnancy, were you feeling this? Like if you had to, before you got pregnant, if you had
Mhm.
to consider, okay, when I get pregnant, I
Mhm.
don't know if it's like something anyone really thinks about because again, we were both practicing by the time we were pregnant with our kids. And
Yeah.
so the world of obstetrics was not new to us
Mhm.
um, as just even lay people.
Mhm. Mhm.
But um, before you got pregnant, did you consider what your sex life would be during pregnancy?
No. Girl, you just said it. Weren't we in residency and
Yeah,
not eating and not sleeping and, you know,
girl, it's
barely
so
knowing
funny.
what day it was?
Even in residency, we talked about the lack of sex during
Girl,
residency, me and my co-residents, and it's amazing. I mean, because we were busy.
it was busy. That's why when
Yeah,
my husband would ask me, "Oh, Grey's Anatomy, they're all having sex in the
I
broom
don't know what they're
closet."
doing. They
They're not
must that
busy.
there's
They ain't busy. They ain't rounding on 3F.
that's not the hospital you want to be
Yeah,
seen
you
at
don't wanna
because who's
you
being
don't wanna be
cared for?
training there. You don't wanna be training there. They in the broom closet for 10 minutes? Shoot.
Without the pager going off.
Nothing interrupted them? They weren't scared? They didn't have fear in their eyes? Psh, I don't wanna go to that residency. I will learn nothing.
So
Nothing.
when I was pregnant with Lily, I I would say that I actually looked good. So a lot of people thought because that there is that wives' tale that
Mhm.
pregnancy and with daughters will suck the beauty out of you.
Mhm.
I mean, I think pregnancy itself sucks things out of you, but
Yeah.
with Lily, I still looked reasonable. But to your point, Lily did not like me in utero. She
Yeah,
kicked
they
me, she
girls
beat me.
mhm.
So that was a very uncomfortable pregnancy. Sammy was uncomfortable because he was huge, but I still had desire. It just was not.
Hmm.
So now, right now, we're talking about our
Mhm.
personal stuff. We're going to go into like the science behind it, right, and
'Cause
all
I'm
the
about to get
different
myself
things
in
to
trouble.
our
Mhm.
patients. But to your point, it wasn't comfortable. So then that's the question, right? If it's not comfortable, is there a way to make it um, still pleasurable with the discomfort and also the anxiety, the fear, all?
That's what I think, most of it is. I think
Mhm.
people are terrified about what it can do, um, and it doesn't do anything, like, right? But people are terrified because it's that stimulation, like, "Oh, is it affecting the baby? Is it this?
Yeah,
Is it that?" And I think that makes it not enjoyable. There are so many um, patients that will come to me and say, "Oh, I had sex and now this thing, I feel this way." And I'm like, it wasn't even worth it, was it? Because the entire time you're anxious, you're like, "Ooh, that hurts. Is that the baby? Is that me? Is that the stomach? Don't go there. Don't do this." I'm like, it's not freeing. I in my head, I was just like, my husband and I were like, "Listen, we just gonna have
I
to
see
take
you
the
on the flip
L.
side.
I'll see you on the flip side. We're gonna take
especially
this
when
L." You
especially when you
know?
have multiples. It's like, look,
Yeah. Nah.
we have to, but okay, but sex in pregnancy is safe. I
Safe.
mean, that's the first thing. It is
Yes.
safe. It is as long as you have a pregnancy in which you are not high risk from a lot of things, especially anything cervical bleeding,
Mhm.
preterm,
Yeah.
it's relatively safe. Now, the level of comfort is different. And so we talk about different positions,
Mhm.
right? Like spooning.
Mhm.
I've always thought that was a weird term. Spooning,
Mhm.
um, a female on top, some more female dominant
I
positions,
don't know how, but again,
but
listen,
comfort. I mean, I'm
listen.
not talking
If you
about the
like it,
aesthetic because
he loves it.
the aesthetic might be too much.
That's a
Um,
lot.
male behind.
Maybe I was just tired. I'm gonna scoot on top to do what?
Okay, so then we talked about penetration, right? All right.
Mhm,
Let's talk about clitoral stimulation
mhm,
during pregnancy. And is what's the difference? Would
mhm.
that be safe?
Oh,
Would that be
totally,
pleasurable?
totally. I think any act is pleasurable. I
Hmm.
think once you've come to the place in your pregnancy where you either have that desire or you've realized it's safe and you realize it's not going to harm the baby and all that things and I think it is good to have intimacy, and intimacy can be different ways, right? But for purposes of intercourse, I think as long as you've gotten to that place of like, this is a natural feeling, it's safe, during the pregnancy,
Hmm.
um, you can enjoy it. I think any form of stimulation is going to be enjoyable.
Yeah.
Uh, I we have the luxury as obstetricians of being in the room and kind of being the outside person looking at this beautiful, amazing thing called labor. And it's just fascinating how similar it is to the sounds in the bedroom, right? Like, especially now, you know, that's why it's so natural, right? It's like this was intentionally done.
Yeah.
This is so intentional, right? The sounds that are made in the bedroom are exactly the same sounds that are made in unmedicated birth.
Yeah.
Um, maybe
Sometimes
that's
medicated.
what turned me off. When it's like, it's just so similar in you know what I'm saying, the
Yeah,
groaning
I
and the
hear you.
moaning and all, but it's beautiful because it's like, wow, like this is exactly how you got here. Um, and then here we are manifesting. So it's a natural process to feel and want intimacy. Pregnancy is not a disease, and so
Yeah.
you should still be able to enjoy that. Um, you
And you
know,
made a good point.
mhm,
Sex and intimacy they're not necessarily the same,
yeah,
and so,
yeah,
we'll talk about, I think, the other ways to have intimacy in pregnancy. And I do want to talk about masturbation in pregnancy.
okay. Don't do it after 36 weeks.
Okay, right. So you made a good point earlier. You said first trimester, I'm throwing up. I'm not right. Okay, that makes sense.
Hmm.
I'm just trying to get my bearings. Second trimester,
Hmm.
you might catch me on a good day. And
Hmm.
that's true. And it makes sense because second trimester is usually the easier part,
Hmm.
right? Third trimester, you got a lot happening in a lot of places. And then you
Yeah.
also, want to time, because what happens during a orgasm? Your uterus contracts.
Hmm.
And so what happens during labor? Your uterus contracts. So I think that's what the big fear
Hmm.
in sex during pregnancy is. So to your
Hmm.
point, you know, um, if you have a higher rate of a earlier delivery, you don't want to have those contractions. But if you think about this, right, those contractions and also knowing how to engage your pelvic floor during pregnancy can actually help you with delivery.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
um, so I engaged, since we are here freely talking, I used my vibrator a lot
Hmm.
in
Girl.
pregnancy.
Hmm.
And um, definitely when, I truly believe labor is not an event in time at just that point. Labor occurs over periods of days, even weeks. And there's parts labor you may not feel. And
Hmm.
so when it's for me, when it was prep time, meaning I've hit 3701, I'm ready. I'm prepping to get this baby out. Akin, let's go. Because at this point, it's not just that contraction
Hmm.
during orgasm. I want that penile stimulation to my cervix because and so I have a
I'm
recipe
sure he
for
found that
labor.
very romantical.
I told him, I don't care if you want to. I don't care if you don't want to. I don't care if you are attracted to me. I don't care if you're not. You got a job, and that is to help me deliver this baby. And so both children, we started at 37 weeks, 38 weeks, 38 plus. They were both born, and after I went into labor. But there are some benefits, right, to having sex
But
experience.
you were doing that more strategically. You
That
know
one was strategic, yes.
that was like, okay, I have a goal
Oh
in
yeah.
order to do this, you know.
That one was not for intimacy. That one
Yeah,
was for my pleasure. That
yeah.
was not for anything but
I
let's
need to
deliver
get
this
delivered.
child on time. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes,
But just to say, there's benefits, throughout. Like if you think about it,
yes.
for intercourse, for orgasm,
Mhm,
and it may not be comfortable because a lot of times after when you orgasm, you can feel those contractions. They do hurt,
mhm,
especially the further you get in pregnancy. So to say I don't want to is also okay, but to still
mhm.
want intimacy, I think is important.
It's
So,
very
what are
yeah.
some other ways to have intimacy in pregnancy with your partner?
Just give him a hand job.
I was, that's not where I was not thinking that you were going to say that. Totally, totally. But it also could get the job done.
I get to
And
go
then
to
go to
sleep.
sleep.
You win-win. Okay. Everybody wins. We were intimate for 5 minutes.
Oh my gosh. I was not. That was not.
Ah,
Yeah.
that was a zinger. I just wanted to get you I wanted to see your face, which I can't see. Marshall wants to be part of this conversation too.
Marshall, Marshall, you have input?
What you haven't done anything in the field, sir. You're only one. You have no skin in the game. Um, so handsome. He just missed, I got home and he's like,
Hmm.
I need mommy to give me attention. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think intimacy can really be just being with each other and holding each
Hmm.
other and, you know, just like I think it's beautiful to like hold a pregnant woman, like to
Yeah.
just to feel her and the belly and the baby moving and like just to that's like a whole atmosphere. That's a
Yeah.
whole separate level of ecstasy of
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
this woman is carrying my seed
Yeah.
and like I'm going to take this moment in. It doesn't have to be penetration as much
Yeah.
as it's appreciation for the moment of like being together in this space of intimacy,
Yeah.
um, feeling one another and just like, so I think there's lots of because there's such it's pregnancy is so beautiful.
Yes.
Pregnancy is so beautiful. And I think that the intimacy comes from just the awe
Yeah.
of this beautiful being who is carrying this growing human. Like just when you think about what is happening inside, and that you're this close to that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that you can feel it and you can touch it. That by itself is intimacy. That by itself, like being able to be in awe of that and to um, appreciate that, I
Yeah.
think is a level of intimacy that I really feel women probably would appreciate more than not that they wouldn't appreciate just, regular intimacy through sex, but just the intimacy of the awe of pregnancy.
I love that you said the word ecstasy and pregnancy together.
Mhm.
Because I don't think that's something that a lot of people would put together. But um, pregnancy is a beautiful state of being,
Yeah.
right? For the person that is, and especially if you're in a relationship that is loving, caring,
Mm.
where you're both sharing that journey together. I
Mhm.
mean, you're lucky because not a lot of people get that in their pregnancies.
Mhm. Mhm.
Not to throw in, um, you know, bad. bad data or bad news, but during pregnancy, women oftentimes suffer. It's a time where you have a higher risk as a woman of suffering from domestic abuse and violence, you know. And so there are a lot of tragedies that happen to women in pregnancy. So if you're someone who gets that benefit of having that partner, that's going to hold another level or another type of intimacy with you, um, that's beneficial. So what I'm hearing from you is you shouldn't feel guilty if you
Mhm.
don't want to have sex, if you
Mhm.
don't want to have intercourse. Let's differentiate these words.
Yeah.
So then what can you do? Because again, I mean, like you're right, sis, it's not that comfortable as you get bigger.
Mhm.
And you may not be able to be mentally there because you're scared, which is completely understandable. And
Mhm.
even though we're here to say it's safe, we're not in the bedroom with you, right? Or you just might not want to, and
Mhm.
or you might not be able to because you've been told not to.
Mhm.
So how do you approach that? What do you tell your patients, right? Let's say it's someone, they got a cerclage,
Mhm.
um, due to history of preterm deliveries,
Mhm. Mm.
incompetent cervix. Um,
No. No.
what would what is your advice to them on what are other things you can do instead of penetration? How do you approach the conversation with your partner?
So, that's it's difficult, right? Because it's, when someone's coming to you and saying, "I want to have sex with my partner,"
Hmm.
they want to have sex with their partner.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah,
like, and I know why I want to have sex with my
yeah,
partner. It's enjoyable to me, and I want to do it.
yeah,
So anything short of that is, I'm sure if you tell someone no, you cannot have penetrable sex, they'll figure out other things, i.e.,
hmm,
things that I said earlier. But what I usually say is, if you're high risk, I don't even rock that boat, because I don't even open up even a possibility that you can do anything that could lead to, oops, we did this
yeah,
thing. So high risk, I literally just say, if you can avoid it at all cost, because a taste of honey is worse than none at all, right?
yeah, yeah,
I forgot that song. That's from is it Smokey Robinson? It's one of those. But you know, you start with the nibbling on it,
hmm,
and then when do you stop? Like,
yeah,
really,
yeah,
no one's has me in their ear in their bedroom, like, oh, she said, and so I'm gonna stop right now. So if you're high risk, I always have these conversations when it comes to anything that could affect the pregnancy, and I'm like, is it worth it?
yeah. That's the number one question.
If it's worth it enough to you that there's a possibility you can end up with bleeding, or end up with rupture, or end up with advanced dilation, it's your pregnancy. You
Yeah,
have to make that choice. I don't ever really sit and tell someone no, as much as I say, is it worth it to you? If
yeah,
something were to happen, would it be worth it to you to have gone through that and that happen? Most women will say no. And
yeah,
so, because shared decision making is a real thing. And, people don't necessarily want to be told no, even though it is a true no answer. Um, but we should all just be able to reason together, right? And so, instead of me saying no,
hmm,
I typically just say, well, is, having sex with your partner, is it worth it in the event that something like this could happen? And if you say yes, is like, or I don't feel concerned, or I feel like this is fine, then I open it up to say, well, these are some other options, these are things you can consider, because you've already taken that on yourself, that I'm willing to do whatever, just to to have this intimacy. But kind of as a generalized statement for everyone else who's not high risk, um I think, first, it's going back to what we talked about. There's different levels of intimacy.
yeah,
Uh, you know, it is safe to have sex, any kind, any way, whatever is most comfortable for you. Obviously, if you start having pain, stop. If you start experiencing bleeding, stop. If it's going to make you more so anxious that you're not going to enjoy actually doing it, don't start. Um, but really, it's, I do feel that a good number of patients are, you know, very knowledgeable in the fact that for the most part, sex after the second trimester, most people will say, is fine,
Yeah.
outside of the high risk population. So I'll be honest, I don't really get a lot of questions about can I. I usually get the post, oh, I did, and
This
you know,
happened.
this happened, and should I be concerned? Um, but I think honestly, the thing that we're missing in this whole conversation is the partner, right?
Oh yeah,
Um, you
they
know,
have they have a role.
they have a role, because we know our dads when they get into that room, they just feel like strangers.
Yeah,
It's a girls club. We're talking about things they don't want to hear.
yeah.
They are seeing things they don't want to see, and it's their baby, and they're also having their own concerns too. So I think, it's great when both people can actually have that conversation, even if it's brought up in the appointment, just like, hey, these are my concerns as her partner, of like the ways I feel like I could hurt her, the ways I feel like it hurt the baby, like, because intimacy is when two people um agree and are consensual in it,
Yeah.
and oftentimes the men aren't going to really say anything,
Well,
but
yeah, because I think they think that this is not my this is not my time. I'm
mhm,
not the main person that's involved here. So I'm more
mhm,
on the periphery. But to
mhm.
your point, that's right. They have a say, but then there's that level of what you're saying is engagement. You know,
Yeah, it's because I might be ready to go, and
yeah,
he's like, but wait, but huh, and who, you know and I don't think that that's a major piece of it, because most men, you just be like, say less, babe, it's okay, we're gonna be all right, and they'll be fine. So I don't think that's like rate limiting step. He needs to be on board for this to happen. But I do think that understanding what levels of intimacy people are comfortable with before you even engage is going to be important. To your point earlier, like some women may not do it, but do it because they feel
yeah. Their
right, like
partner, yeah,
like their partner really
they're
wants it.
forced, yeah,
And while it may not be like this coercion of like I'm doing it under duress, if both people aren't enjoying it, then
yeah.
there's really no point. So I think, I mean, I as with all things, whether you're pregnant or not pregnant, I think it's about communication. It's about respect for one another. It's about ensuring that both parties are comfortable with that, and obviously clearing all of that with your doctor before you start.
Well, and
Um,
so for those who have the opportunity, this is a wonderful, and again, not everyone we understand would have this opportunity, right? Because all relationships are different. All pregnancies come from for different reasons. But for those
mhm,
who have the opportunity, pre-pregnancy conversation piece is what are we comfortable with doing when we get pregnant,
yeah.
and then just again a conversation piece in a relationship that's really important is intimacy. What are types of intimacy that I am comfortable receiving and giving, and what levels of intimacy, what types of intimacy am I aware of? For many people, touch is enough. And so, okay, touch my feet, I am ecstatic, and we can end the night right there. And
Mhm,
so having that, I think conversation is really important. And to your point, bringing it to your physician, even before you have a concern, let it be a topic that's at that first prenatal visit,
mhm,
a visit in the second trimester and then the third trimester too. But as physicians, we need to ask that question too. Are you having sex? How do
mhm,
you feel?
mhm.
Is it comfortable? Okay. Because some people are too shy to give that information. And
Also though, if this is your first baby, you're less likely to rock that boat.
yeah,
If this is your third, you already did it, before
Oh
you came
yeah,
into this appointment,
yeah.
right? So I think it's a comfort level that
It's
just
a comfort
comes
level.
over time. Um, but I think the takeaway is it's safe.
Yeah,
In certain situations, obviously you would know that's going to be something that is expressed throughout the pregnancy. That no, you can no pelvic rest, excuse me, things like that.
yeah,
There's certain conditions that happen during pregnancy, like previa and things like that, that they will really reinforce no sex. And so outside of that, um it's safe, it can be enjoyable. um it is an either it it's another way to get closer
yeah,
during this pregnancy. For reasons I said, I mean, you have this beautiful being in front of you who is growing this human, and you were a part of that. Like, we did this thing, and this thing is here. I mean, I think that by itself brings about a very intimate um, atmosphere when you can acknowledge the awe of that in the moment. Um, and so I feel like a lot of people are doing that, um, and enjoying it. And some people are having great pregnancies, and they're not having the nausea, and they're not having the aches and the round ligament pains and the things that could potentially prevent you from having an enjoyable encounter. And but the last piece is, it may not be for everyone during pregnancy, and that's okay
yeah,
too, right? Like, if you're
yeah.
not feeling it, if you don't want to, you're not less than, because
Yeah. I mean, because we're
it's
all
not yeah, it's okay. So it's hormones. The effect of hormones is most of the time out of our control, and sometimes you're just like, I don't want to, and I don't feel like it, and that's okay too.
there's some women in pregnancy, they're on the chandelier. It's like every moment. There's some women in pregnancy, it's like, you look at me, I'm not, so
Yeah.
everyone's different. And what we're discussing is, now, is it safe? Okay, backdoor play.
Ooh.
That honestly, let me just say this. There are multiple ways to have intercourse or sex. There are multiple ways. For pregnancy, I do not advise backdoor play at all, for multiple reasons. But the main reason is because that is the time that you, in your fertile life, have a higher risk of hemorrhoids and prolapsing hemorrhoids.
Mm.
And so, to me,
Oof.
having any extra stress on that sphincter in the rectum, no matter how good your lube is or how, just leave it alone. Just that. So for those patients that are like, oh, I have a cerclage or I have a placenta previa,
Ooh,
they
don't
said
do
no
that.
vaginal intercourse, but I can go ahead and, no, don't do that.
Don't do
Just leave it
that.
alone.
Don't do
Just leave it
that.
alone. No
There's lots of
clitoral
other
stimulation.
things you
Yeah.
can do.
We're just not, for those people, we're trying not to have you do anything. Right. So that part, I'm absolutely like, no. I'm sure there's those who would be like, oh, she's crazy for saying that. But I've seen enough thrombosed hemorrhoids in my life to be like,
And
you should.
again, up to you, right? Like, I just view myself as, if you ask me my advice, I'll give it to you. You don't have to take it, if it's worth it to you to do that,
It should be. Hemorrhoids aren't worth it.
it ain't worth it.
If it causes a hemorrhoid, it's not worth it.
Woo, it is not worth it.
Okay, so just to kind of wrap up, positions that are good: spooning, female dominant, um, positions generally. Anything that kind of avoids the belly um, is helpful.
Yeah.
Doggy style, because it avoids the belly, but you have to be also mindful of that, because that could be, the thrusting could be a little bit too much.
Side
But
position is very
side position is good.
good. Mhm.
But again, intimacy does not have to be sexual intercourse. And if you don't want to do it, don't do it. You should not be coerced in your pregnancy because it is a time where your body is changing a lot.
Mhm.
And so the things that you're comfortable with as a pregnant um, person is what you should be doing,
Yep.
essentially. So, I love talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on. I know
I'm
there's a
probably
lot
gonna be
more
barred from this,
underneath the cover that we didn't say. Oh, you should
ah,
you should listen to the after show recording to see what we really think.
uh-huh. I might get doubly barred after that
Yeah.
because this is one of those it's a we don't talk about it much, so it's hard to, like, navigate around the conversation, but I think it was a good conversation.
Yeah, yeah,
Good
we're here to give
conversation to have.
information.
Mhm.
Like we always say, if you like it, I love it.
If you like it, I love it. That's
But
a
at the end of the day, don't come ask me questions that you already knew what you did was wrong. So,
True that. I enjoy it. Thanks for the invitation. Please invite me back.
yes, I wanted because your tips are always very good. Oftentimes they are very surprising. We're appreciative.
Ladies, y'all know what I'm saying. Win-win. When everyone goes to sleep happy.
Dr. Mary, thank you for your time.
Of course. See ya.
This is Climax After Dark.